see you today. I'm here with Tuesday Schmooze Day at Things Crafty, and I'm here with Cynthia Tinapple. We're doing 12 questions, and I'm your new host, Wendy Strain. This is the first time for me. I've never done any kind of live podcasting, so you'll have to forgive me if I flub up a little bit here and there. Cynthia Tinapple is here to talk about her book, Polymer Clay, Global Perspectives. And I believe there it is. She has the book right there. It's an amazing book. It has this wonderful tour of artists throughout the world. So we're live right now. We've got the chat going on. Please feel free to chime in through the Crafty Link chat box and ask your questions, make your comments, whatever. If you have questions, please make sure that you type them in all caps so that we can identify them as questions instead of just general commenting. And we'll also have a Q&A session at the very end, so that's when we'll ask those questions of Cynthia, and she'll answer as many as she possibly can. You do need to be a member of the Crafty Link community and the Tuesday Schmooze Day group in order to chat with us and to watch the video. So make sure you come over and join us. It's free if you want to get in on the fun. You can join us anytime at craftylink.com. So without any further ado, let's get on with the interview. So Cynthia, would you like to tell us anything about yourself?
I've been an artist and a polymer clay person since the late 80s. I live in Columbus, Ohio, actually, Worthington, Ohio, and my husband's a woodworker, and you can see lots of his handiwork around here. I've been doing Polymer Clay Daily, the blog, for 8 years now, since 2005. And it started out just a few people, and I thought, oh, I had a pretty big number, and I thought, oh, that must be everybody in the world. And then it grew and grew and grew, and more people around the world started coming on. So it's just grown phenomenally, Polymer Clay. And because I could see what was happening, I decided to write a book, which was published this month. So, and it was published through Random House in New York.
The book is beautifully put together. I love everything about it. If you're watching, don't forget we have a giveaway at the end of the program, so make sure you stay all the way through the interview so you can see who wins the book. Yeah. Cynthia, your book features a lot of different creative polymer clay artists. So I'm curious, what does being creative mean to you?
Well, you know, it can mean lots of different things, but in the book I talk about how I'm not telling you how to get in a museum or how to make $1 million selling jewelry, or it's not really about that. To me, and what was a recurring theme among the 13 artists in the book was that it was about play. And it's about how to get back to that childish play. And that it's a delightful feeling. It turns out to be a very, in several instances, playing was very therapeutic to people. So to me, it's not just to make something beautiful, although that's certainly something you want to do. But it's a healthy, it's a healthy habit to have.
I love that. It's a healthy habit to have.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people tend to forget to play in their daily jobs and their daily lives.
Exactly.
You can see my workspace here is pretty blank. That's because I'm in my day job office.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get creative when you're in office buildings, when you're managing the kids, shuttling back and forth. So I love that concept of including play in whatever it is that you do. Even where I work now, I still manage to incorporate play. So having that as part of the creative definition is wonderful.
Yeah.
It also makes me wonder what first led you to polymer clay. I mean, can you talk about that moment when you first discovered polymer clay as something you wanted to work in?
Well, it's actually kind of silly. My daughter and I, she was about, I don't know, 8 or 10, and she had a dollhouse, and so we started making, salads and pizzas and things for her dollhouse. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool stuff. And then a little while later, I was at the Museum of Modern Art and at their gift shop and saw some stuff, and I recognized, I thought, that's polymer clay, and it was a Ford and Forlano piece. And I thought, a light bulb just went on. I thought, oh, yes, because I'm a very tactile person, and polymer is often called color that you can sculpt. And so it gives you both the tactile kind of fun of it and also dealing with color. Some people say they didn't get the thrill with ceramics because you didn't really have complete control over the color. Although some people do, but it's harder to have control over the color. But with polymer, you get both tactile and color. So I don't know. It sticks in my mind that when I saw the Ford and Forlano piece, I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
I know what you mean about the color in the ceramics. I've tried that before, and it didn't always turn out as well as I'd like. And you do some amazing things with the polymer clay you were showing me before the interview started. They're just gorgeous, and the colors you get together and the way that you get them to work with each other is amazing. I was wondering, how do you come up with those techniques? Do you invent them? Do you learn them from other people? What kind of rituals or routines do you have that really lead you into your innovations?
Well, I straddle two worlds, so it's kind of hard for me to answer that question because I'm both a communicator, and I think of the computer as part of my creative outlet, and then the studio. And I try not to be I try to have a guilt-free studio. So I have more routines for the computer. Every day I do a post, and every day I do, some research and yada yada. But I try to keep the studio pretty playful. And I don't have as many. I'm not looking to make a living from that. So and things just strike me. And if I'm really stuck, I find that if I get in the car and I just drive to the mall or somewhere, it's on the drive, something jars loose when I'm driving. So sometimes that's when things come to me. It's the old, when you're in the shower, then you solve the problem. So, but of course, I'm looking at lots of people's work. I'm looking, I'm a bit of a nut for tutorials. I like looking at tutorials. I say it's because I'm vetting them for other people, but basically I really like to look at them. So I'm looking at a lot of stuff, and then I like to think, well, how can I do that but express me? How can I follow what someone else's method but give it my signature, my spin? So that's how.
So you're kind of building off of what other people are doing and adding your own taste, your own opinion, your own, like you said, your spin.
Right. And there's a big controversy, I'm sure not just in polymer, but often in polymer about, oh, you're copying someone. Well, that's a long and venerated tradition that artists copy each other. The hope is that then you finally get your voice. And as I look at people, doing a blog for a number of years, I can see when they took a particular artist, oh, she took this class, she took this class. Oh, look, now she's giving it her own spin. And I can, if you go back in someone's Flickr galleries, you can see how they progressed. And when they decided to give it their own smell, their own stink, they put their own stink on it.
Well, and how else do you learn other than copying what other people have done?
Exactly.
And moving from there.
Yeah.
Now, I come from crafting from a writer's perspective as well, and so plagiarism, of course, is something that we deal with frequently. But in the writing world, you know, they say there's only so many plots that you can have, so you have to copy what other people have done.
Right.
Because there's only a limited number of plots. With polymer clay, it's not quite so limited, I don't think. At least that's my impression.
Right. Right.
What I'm curious about is you've worked in polymer clay quite extensively. Is there a medium you'd like to learn but you haven't learned yet?
Well, you know, I've got one of those Silhouette Cameo machines next to my computer, and I've turned it on, I've got it fired up, but I really want to play with that. I really want to play with, you know, the whole 3D thing. And I guess that what I want to do is bring the computer and the studio closer together. And I've done that. I've done transfers, you know, and all kinds of things that really are bringing the computer and the studio closer together. Other things I'd like to, well, you know, I was just in France at a class, and it was great fun because I was with a bunch of other people who, and I carved. I never carved. I did some bookmaking. I don't do bookmaking. You know, I made a puppet. You know, so it's really thrilling to try new things, but particularly where you're in a safe environment and no one's going to guffaw and fall off their chair at how silly you are.
Well, I'm pretty good at making a fool of myself and trying new things, so I completely understand what you're saying. I noticed before we started the interview, you showed me a couple of your canes that you were working on. Did you want to show any of those to our audience today and tell us a little about how you made them?
Yeah. Well, this is just one thing that I'm actually working on now is coming up with more extrusion discs. I'm coming out with a line of discs because I love to make canes. I mean, frankly, if you had to make a cane using these and you had to roll it all by hand, it would take you forever. So what you do is you use a, well, I hook mine to a drill, my Makin's extruder to a drill, and I just, you know, I don't know whether you can see that, but, you know, out comes the pieces that I'll be using in the cane. So I don't have to roll them out by hand. So, but it's based on Millefiori, which is, you know, the Italian glass technique. I don't know whether I'm showing those. You can see them. But so it's a big cane. The canes start kind of big. They may start at this size, and then I can pull that clay and reduce it down to a small size. This happens to be Granny's, part of a Granny squares.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. Oh, here's maybe a little more. And you can get it down small, and then you take slices.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But it's all based on making it large and kind of like taffy, pulling the pattern smaller and smaller. It's the pattern remains intact, and you can see I've got these wrapped in deli wrap. It won't dry out. These are probably maybe 6 months old, and it's still quite sticky unless I get it to, what is it, 270 degrees. It'll remain pliable for years.
Wow.
So, yeah. I'll show you some. Let me just quickly.
Sure.
I'll show you ones that are maybe, I don't know, maybe these are 3 or 4 years old. You know, and I can still roll them smaller and smaller, and I don't know if that's coming through or not. Anyway, but that's just one way. Caning is just one way. I don't mean to say that you must cane, you must extrude, because in the book I talk about people who are doing miniatures, people who are doing sculpture, people who are doing vessels. Jewelry is a big part of it because it's easy. Someone in the book said, you know, what other medium could you get into where you could have something in 2 hours? You know, if you started to weave, in 2 hours you might have part of the loom threaded. In watercolor, you know, what would you have after 2 hours? But in polymer, you can work for 2 hours and wear at home. So it's a very forgiving and flexible medium that you can do sculpture, all kinds of things with.
I noticed that there's a lot of using techniques from other mediums and pulling it in. Like you were just showing us the granny squares. I remember that from crochet.
Yeah.
And glass techniques, glass blowing techniques are featured in your book as well. So
right.
I think that's what prompted that question, was I see all these other techniques from other mediums being pulled into your polymer clay practice or the practice of the other artists that are featured in your book.
Right, and I initially I didn't understand. I mean, I knew that polymer artists were looking at the fiber arts, and we were looking at, you know, what they're doing in stamping or what they're doing in metalsmithing to steal those techniques. I mean, we thought of ourselves as stealing, but it didn't occur to me that fiber people are now looking at polymer people, thinking, what can we use from polymer? And so it's a back and forth. I thought we were the only ones, you know, doing that, but it turns out everyone does that. And even what tickles me is, even if you look at the cake shows now, you know, the decorated cakes, you think they've looked at the polymer techniques. You know?
Wow. Now, see, I wouldn't have thought of that. You pulling polymer techniques into baking.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Really.
Well, a lot of the comments that have come through in the chat boards have been mentioning how beautiful your canes are, and they absolutely are. So thank you for sharing those with us. Yeah. We really appreciate that. We're getting a lot of ideas from that, I think, based on what people are saying. I'm wondering, what's the best advice you've received about things like creative block? Do you ever have a problem with creative block?
Oh, sure. I try not to get too guilty about it, because that makes it worse. I try to be nice to myself, I guess. I guess the person, you know, there's that old Chuck Close, the artist Chuck Close said that, you know, you just show up. And I think sometimes if I go in my studio and I can't think of what I want to do, I don't know, I'm not any good at this, you know, and whatever. And I'm berating myself. Even if I just am in there cleaning up, I get some good juju just from that, you know. And I worked on a book that we self-published with Dale Doroshow, and she has some wonderful techniques for, her favorite one, the one I like the best from her, was that she makes herself make 5 of anything, because she can't really tell whether she likes it and whether it was successful or whether she wants to keep doing it until she's made several. So if you just make one, you're not really experiencing what you need to experience. So I always kind of was intrigued by that. I can't say that I always do that, but I like the idea of making multiples and what that teaches you.
That makes a lot of sense. Again, coming from a writing perspective, I work with a lot of people who are just starting out, and I keep on telling them, you know, be sloppy, be fun, just play with whatever it is that you're working on, be it words or polymer clay or yarn or whatever it is. Just have fun with it, make lots of first drafts, and then you have lots of things to pick from.
Right.
And you learn from your mistakes. You absolutely do.
Right.
So, what was your favorite project that you featured in your book, Polymer Clay, Global Perspectives, and why is that your favorite?
My favorite. Well, you know, what's turning out to be everyone's favorite, and it was mine as well, was is Claire Moncel, because Claire Moncel shows in the book a new way of making a hollow form. And it's interesting because she did hot glass for 20 years up in Toronto. And then her husband joined the Navy, and so she had to move, and she couldn't take all her hot glass equipment with her. And so she had to have something to do, so she got polymer. But she handles polymer as if it were hot glass. So her way of making a hollow form is to make it very thin and pliable, and to roll it out more, and so that it has a bigger hole in the middle, and then to blow in it and to pinch off the ends. And it's fascinating to me to see someone so clearly bring their experience in some other medium to polymer, and it worked. And also, hollow forms in polymer everybody's trying to figure out ways to do it, and it's one of the coolest ways I've seen of doing a hollow form.
That was actually pretty interesting to me too. I think that section of the book really slowed me down and made me really pay attention to, okay,
right,
how is she doing this? This is amazing what she's doing.
Yeah, another one I put in just because it intrigued me was Kim Karenga, whose work I love. But she takes a cane, and she takes an old cane and hollows out the middle of it and sticks a new cane in the middle of an old one, and it expands her repertoire because she's got, you can keep doing that forever. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. I mean, we keep thinking about putting stuff on the outside and making the cane bigger and bigger, but she went through the middle and put something in the middle, which is very clever.
That is really clever.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things I liked most about your book, was that the projects were so diverse, and the inspirations for each of them came from such different places.
Right.
How did you pick those those artists? I mean,
It's very strange. I did it as I do when I pick posts. I kind of skim down the screen, looking at various things on my feed, and I think, oh, there it is. And I don't know who it is, I don't know what it is, but it speaks to me. It's a kind of a visceral response, it's just like, that's it, And so these were people whose work I thought had a lot of spirit and a lot of personality, and so that's really what spoke to me. That's how I picked them. And as it turned out, their stories were fascinating. Shea Aaron, a guy from Israel, lost, I forget, like 150, 175 pounds, and he makes little food. It's portion control. I mean, I didn't know that. Fabi Ajadis. She is deaf. She's been deaf since birth. I did not know that. And this was, these were people who were working out answers to other problems in their life through their art, and who found great joy, and relief from the other problems by working at something creative.
I love the story of the overweight person figuring out how to do portion control by working with polymer clay and making miniature food. That's really great.
Yeah, he makes huge banquets of food, but they're only about this big, Yeah.
So what was your inspiration to create this collection of artists in one book?
Well, I have a bunch of friends who have also written books, and they kept saying, that's the next step, you have to do it, you have to do it, you have to do it. So, Lindley Hanani and Maggie Maggio and Judy Belcher was the one. These are people who just kept after me. You know, they were nipping at my heels. So I thought, oh, okay, how hard can it be? Trust me, it's hard. But it was the next step. And I felt, you know, we see a lot of the same artists, and they're master artists, but we see a lot of the same people. And I thought it was time, if we're calling ourselves an international group, to bring in that international representatives. So that was really the point of it, you know. And also to say it's not just jewelry. You don't have to just do canes. You don't, you know, it's a very flexible and growing medium.
I noticed that the projects, you know, I'm not a polymer clay artist myself, but I always thought of polymer clay as a jewelry element. If you're going to work in polymer clay, you're going to make jewelry, is how it connected in my head.
Right.
And so when I saw your book, I really appreciated the fact that there was jewelry, yes, but there were so many other projects and so many other different applications of those projects. I thought that was amazing, and the international aspect, I really appreciate that too.
Thanks, and I wish I could have put more in, actually. Oh, I think of all the people who I didn't, you know.
So is there a book 2 in the future then?
Oh, dear God. Oh, maybe, but not at the moment.
Take a break for a little while first. Yeah. So for those of us who don't work in polymer clay, can you tell us what is the most challenging thing that you find beginners face when working with the medium?
Well, they want to have a piece that they saw in the book in those first 2 hours, you know. And usually it doesn't happen quite that way. I like the story in the book. It was, what's her name, Watkins, Rebecca Watkins from Pittsburgh. She said she picked it up, she fooled around with it, it was terrible, and she put it away for a couple years. And then she saw something in a book that she thought, wait, you could do that? And so she picked it up again, and she hasn't put it down. So, you know, lots of people start and are, you know, upset that they're not experts immediately. But you can get something really nice immediately, but it, you know, to become really good at it does take time. So, so I don't know. Keep trying. I guess that's it.
I think patience is a hard thing for many people to work with. For myself, I want instant gratification too, and I think that kind of is getting worse as the years go by. And we have gratification through the computer.
Yeah, things like Pinterest, where you see, you know, you're just bombarded with all these terrific things, and then you go in your studio and you think, mine doesn't look that good. But you keep trying. You know.
Well, and if yours doesn't look exactly as perfect as the one on Pinterest, maybe not, but maybe it's better in some other way. Like, it's there anyway.
Right. I'm always amazed by Leslie Blackford. I mean, if you could see her workspace, if you could see, it's a mess. She's got just junk, and and when she puts things together, they're roughly done, and they have terrific charm, and everybody is amazed. She just has, you know, she can put a spirit into it. Now, technique, not so much, but she has, I don't know, something magic. She puts magic in her stuff. So it's not necessarily technique.
That's really cool. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I mean, some of the greatest artists in the world, when you look at what they've produced from an uneducated, in that particular medium kind of perspective, you're thinking, well, you know, that's paint on a canvas.
Yeah.
Why do I care about that?
Exactly.
But if you play with it and you have fun with it and you capture the spirit of it.
Well, and conversely, you know, I can see people who have fine technique, you know, just great technique. But they're kind of lacking in the energy or the spirit or the, it doesn't have the fun it should have, or the angst. They can be angry pieces are interesting too, but I mean, if it doesn't have the real passion in it, then sometimes it doesn't matter how much technique you have.
So that kind of brings us back to the idea of play, doesn't it? That you
Yeah.
have to have some play time in order to really capture the feeling, the spirit, everything involved in actually creating art instead of creating a lump.
Well, yeah.
Or maybe you're not creating a lump, maybe you're creating something very beautiful, but it doesn't have that same spark to it that it might have had if you'd had fun playing with it while you were doing it.
Right. And honestly, that spark comes through. I can see it. I mean, others can see it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I noticed, we've talked about how your book is so full of some very creative and unusual techniques for working with polymer clay. Mm-hmm. We've talked about using the glass blowing techniques to create hollow beads. Do you think the well is tapped for innovative approaches in this area, and why do you think that, or why not?
No, I think we've scratched the surface.
Really?
Yeah. I think a couple of things. Well, technology is one thing that's going to change. We've got 3D printing, and they're talking about using polymer for 3D printing. The threads that they spit out to print are polymer. I think the clay will become bio clay. Everyone was, it used to be that people were looked askance at it because it was a child's toy. It smelled bad when you baked it. They've taken the phthalates out. They continue to modify it. I look forward to some time when it'll be bio clay. It'll be made out of switchgrass or, I don't know, tapioca, or it'll be edible. I don't know.
Wow.
But that, and when I see the crossover from hot glass, I wonder how many other and cakes. How many other crossovers are there? What's next? And I think there's a lot ahead. We're actually, it was developed in the 40s, maybe the late 30s. It sort of languished as a kid's toy, and it really just got picked up in the 80s, and that's pretty recent. I mean, you can't really name another craft that just started then. So I think we got a lot ahead of us.
Good point. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, crochet, knitting, that's been around for centuries at least.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about polymer clay being a relatively recent medium to work in.
Mm-hmm. And just further on that point, remember that pottery was considered too utilitarian to be in museums, and photography was considered is too democratic. Everybody had a camera, so photography couldn't be in museums. That's not really art. And these are all rather recent entries into museums and considered fine art, and I think polymer has reached that point now too.
That's amazing, and that's wonderful. I mean, I think it should be, because the artwork that you actually have to put into it should be recognized as such.
Sure, and it is being recognized. So,
go ahead.
No.
I noticed out of all of you have so many projects in your book, and I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, I really want to make that. I mean, like you were talking earlier, the beginner's syndrome. I want to make that. I want to make that. I want to make that. If you could pick one project out of your book, what would you suggest for a beginner, for a moderately skilled individual, and then for an advanced crafter?
Well, I think for the beginner, I would say Rebecca Watkins, because it's a real clever and very, you can personalize a lot. Hers are beads, and then you make a round ball, then you tear up little pieces. You put the pieces on the ball, and then you kind of find the pattern. You find the picture in that she suggests that you do flowers. So you put little flower petals on, and then you scribe, you kind of draw on the bead while it's still soft, and then you bake that. And you have to look at the project, but it's really an easy and approachable and very doable project. For an intermediate person, what do I think? I like T.J. Floyd has a heart, an encased heart. So you make the base heart, you cover that with foil, you put another layer on, and then you cut around so you have a heart. It's kind of like Matryoshka dolls, like those Russian dolls. But she shows you how to make those. And I think, I don't know, that's kind of fun. It's not jewelry. It kind of stretches you in other directions, to think about, things within things. That's interesting. So, and for a more seasoned person, I like Jera Chandler's putting it on canvas. She puts polymer onto canvas and makes, a still life out of polymer that kind of goes beyond the canvas. But it's a very clever, and again, it stretches you to think in different ways.
I love that piece that she does with the putting it on the canvas. It's very 3D and interactive kind of.
Right.
And I see what you mean about, I remember the balls that you were talking about, the flower balls for the beginners.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know, you have your book. Perhaps you could show the pictures of each one of these projects to the camera.
Sure. Uh-oh, you're going to put me on.
I know, they're embedded.
Where am I going to find them? And you're going to, well, I don't know whether, whoa.
There you go.
You can kind of see the heart within a heart. And then she takes them and makes, is that her? Yes. She embellishes them so that they're quite elaborate. But that's, that's one thing you can do with polymer is, rebake and rebake. So you can make the base layer and then decide, well, it needs more embellishment, so you put something on it and bake it again. But people don't quite understand. They think you have to do it all in one fell swoop, but you don't. And here she's showing, I'm not sure that's, but she gives step-by-steps on how to do that. And it's a heart baked, and then foil put over that, and then another layer put on, and then you let you cut through the one layer to reveal the other. Clever. Okay, what was the other one I said? Oh, Jera Chandler. I don't know. This is the final thing, but she's applying this sheets of polymer to a canvas, and then for her grapes and pears and stuff, she's applying little balls for the fruit on top of the base layer. So she's building up. And what was the other one? Oh, Rebecca. Whew. Rebecca Watkins is from Pittsburgh. And she only makes beads. I kind of like that about Rebecca. She said she doesn't like figuring out how long to make a necklace or how, whether people want silver or gold or whether, she doesn't like that, but she loves making beads, so she just sells beads. She sells them on Etsy and other places, but she doesn't make finished jewelry. And I thought, how nice to know what it is you like and just follow that.
True.
Yeah. True. Rather than struggling, thinking, oh, what kind of necklace do I have to make? Well, shoot, really, she's in here. I know she's in here. Sorry. Ask me another question.
I'm sorry, I kind of threw that at you without preparation. So my fault.
Trust me, it's in there.
Well, I think this is probably the most difficult question. At least it would be for me. And that is, if you could be any color of clay you wanted to be, what color would you be and why?
don't know why. I would be teal. Although when I was a interior decorator in a former life, and I would always go to people's closets and look in their closets at whatever, and get the overall impression. Mostly, if I looked in my closet right now, I'd think I was orange because I'm in an orange phase. But I think teal is, greeny, bluey color. But why? I don't know, because it calms me, and it's kind of robin's egg. It's kind of nature. It's kind of. But I hate to have to pick one color. I'm a very it was Maggie Maggio, who's a terrific polymer colorist, and she looked at my stuff and said very candidly, "Oh, you're a polychromatic person." And I thought, I'm a polychromatic person. Like, some people like to use, say, in a one color monochromatic. Some people have, combinations they like, and some people are polychromatic. And I suppose it's good that I'm a polychromatic person.
Yay, you're a rainbow.
Yes, I'm a rainbow girl.
I think that's why it would have been the most difficult question for me, too, because how do you pick one color?
Yeah.
But I like teal. Teal is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
For me, it reminds me of water.
Ask me next year, it might be entirely different.
You said your closet's all orange, so.
I know it is. How did that happen? I don't know how that happened. I just looked one day and thought, I've turned orange.
Some of our people in the chat box is saying, I'm wearing teal right now. I love teal.
Oh, And what do I have on? I have on black.
It looks kind of purpley from here.
Actually, it's brown. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of purpley, brownish.
So let's get to some of our audience questions, because there have been a few. One of the questions that was asked was, is there other mediums that you work in that you add with your polymer clay creations, like flakes or foils? Do you add these in with your canes, etc.?
Yeah, if you look at Kim Karinga's section in the book, she puts Jonestones on the outside of her canes, which makes a beautiful kind of pop, a metallic pop on the edge of every cane. It's really very cool. But sure, are you kidding? Polymer people use everything. Inks, powders, eyeshadow, pastels. Honestly, I'm just amazed at what people put in. What do I put in? Jonestones, some flakes, some of the metallic flakes. I don't. The inks I tried, but they're kind of messy. So if you like messy, the inks are great. So. But what else? So there's the question here about being food safe. And for the most part, we say you don't use it for eating on, or so you put it on the outside of a vessel. Hang on a second. I've got a bowl here. I'll be right back.
So the question she's responding to is whether or not she makes utility vessels, drinking glasses, plates, etc., with polymer, and how to make it food safe if you do make those. I was just letting the audience know what the question was.
Sure. And this is a bowl that my husband turned. My husband and I work together a lot, but he cuts a channel on the outside of the bowl, and I'll fill that with cane slices or with a pattern, and fire that with a heat gun. So people could still use this for foods, for salad bowl or whatever, because it's really not touching that. The same way I've used it on the stem. You can put glass in the oven at 270 degrees, so I've put things around the stem of a glass or over a bottle, or so if it's not going to touch your mouth, it's fine. And I don't know too much about the science of that, what makes it so intolerable, because they did take the phthalates out of the clay, but just to be safe, most people have put a barrier between you and the polymer.
People are really liking your bowl.
Oh, yeah.
I like that idea of I love the idea that you are able to work together with your husband. That's amazing to start with, and then the idea of blending your arts together the way you do. That's really special.
It is. It is.
Another question we got from the audience was, how did you get into polymer clay in the first place?
Through my daughter and the dollhouse, making miniatures. And then I kind of moved into jewelry, but that didn't I really don't like making hundreds of things. And so when I met my husband and he said, all right, we'll do this. And so we put polymer. I have it in my bathroom sink. I have it up the stairs. I have it on the walls. So I like living with it around me. It's on my windowsill. I like it surrounded. I like living with it as much as I'm wearing it too.
It's very nice.
Yeah. But you have to kind of find what suits you. I'm not very good at sculpture. I'm okay, but you find what floats your boat.
And what fits your needs probably as well.
Right.
You were saying with the dollhouse, that really kind of led you into it. I'm sure that was probably partially because you couldn't find the pieces you wanted. Right.
And at that time in my life, that was appropriate. But, she outgrew the dollhouse, but I never outgrew polymer.
I don't think you should ever outgrow polymer. I think you have too much fun with it.
Yeah.
Before we get on to the last question that we have so far, we do have a giveaway. Somebody is going to win a copy of your book. So just...
You're on. I'm giving you good luck.
So the winner that has been drawn for the copy of Cynthia's book is Tonya Sawyers. So Tonya, if you could please make sure that you email thingscrafty@gmail.com. We'll make sure you get that book. Trust me, it's really worth it. I don't know. I've spent so many evenings just going through one project at a time. I wish I could make this.
Oh, you can.
So,
and it won't go away. It'll stay. Even if you don't get to it for a while, it'll still be there.
One of the people on the chat list actually commented that they have canes that are 20 years old and still pliable. So
yeah,
that's amazing too. I love that idea that you can just kind of wrap it up and leave it alone for a little while if life gets a little too busy to finish things up right now.
Right.
Our last question, and it was kind of a question that was asked and then redacted, but I think perhaps it would be helpful to other people. So the question is a silhouette machine a computer program such as Photoshop, and does that translate, or how does that translate to polymer clay?
Oh, yeah, I should explain that more. I'm researching right now first, the Cameo silhouette machine, or silhouette Cameo, I don't know which way it goes, but if you Google that, you can find it. It's a printer, and I forget what kind of printer you'd call it. It's like a cutter machine. It cuts. It's supposed to be for stampers and paper people who want to cut out tags and names and little appendages for their work. But I saw at a conference, I saw Mags Bonham from, I forget where she lives, but anyway, Mags Bonham had cut polymer with it. That is, she had cut unbaked polymer. She put a sheet in the machine, and the cutter went and cut the shape she had. And oh my God, it was just like, I told you I want to bring the computer and polymer closer together, and I thought, bingo, So she was doing she was doing multiples of things, and if you look up Mags Bonham, you'll see what she makes kind of pine cone looking. Actually, they're hops, but she makes these petals that go over each other. So it was much easier for her to have it cut out on this machine than do it by hand. So I'm interested in figuring more about that. Once I saw that, I thought, oh, I have to do this. So it's very much like Photoshop. I saw the question asked if it replaced Photoshop, but it's very much like Photoshop.
I don't think it replaces Photoshop, though.
No,
Photoshop allows you to play with the images and get them how you want, and then Silhouette lets you get them out of the computer and into the real world.
Right, exactly. But if you already know Photoshop, you are like giant steps ahead.
I would love to get one. I've worked with balsa wood in the past, and I've noticed that the Silhouette will cut through balsa wood even.
No, is that right?
So, yes. And so I'm anxious to get one just so I can see if my models in theory would actually work in reality.
See, I told you, there's lots more to be discovered here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I don't see any further questions coming in, so this will be the end of our interview. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for coming in and being a part of my first 12 questions interview. I really appreciate it. You're an amazing artist, and I've really appreciated getting the chance to meet you and talk with you.
Check out polymerclaydaily.com.
We will definitely be sharing your links with our audience because they are definitely interested. For those of you who are watching the recording, make sure that you sign up for our newsletter, and we'll let you know what's going on and help you catch us for our next interview. You can sign up anytime by going to craftylink.com. Also, if you have any other questions for Cynthia after we've closed, then please leave your comments and questions below the video, and we'll get back to you, back with her, and get your answers as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cynthia, for coming.
Thank you, Wendy. You've been terrific.
And thank you for everyone for showing up. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you, Cynthia. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.